Welcome to episode 7 of the Daddyless Issues podcast. Today's episode is Out of Sight, but Not Out of Mind. And today's piece of the puzzle, emotionally and spiritually disconnected fathers are the equivalent of being daddyless. Let's talk about it. Welcome to episode 7 of the Daddyless Issues podcast. I am your host, Donte Brown. Thank you for being here as always. So today we are talking about the present but absent fathers and how it equates to being daddyless. So imagine being in a household filled with all the people you love and you still feel alone. The house never felt like a home. Even though it's cold outside, it feels even colder inside. It's Christmas. Everyone's sitting at the dinner table. And your father stumbles up the stairs where he's been all morning. He wasn't even there when you opened your presents. He staggered over to the head of the table and flops down. And his whole place setting slams to the floor. And he stumbles to try to pick it up, but he falls over right down next to the plate, the fork and the spoon and the napkin on the floor. And you can smell the sweetness of the alcohol that's been seeping from his pores for weeks. So he tries to stand up, but he falls back down. Then this is when the argument begins. You're drunk. Your mother screams, "How could you do this to our kids on Christmas? You do this after every holiday. Actually, you do this every day." And he tries to respond, but his words are so jumbled that they can't be understood. He just lays there on the floor until all the kids try to pick him up. "Come on, Daddy. We'll help you," says your five-year-old little sister. And he mumbles something as they are able to help him to turn over. Then the worst part is seeing that large, wet stain on the front of his pants. Your mother screams in anger, "Oh my God, you pissed yourself. I absolutely can't believe you." And he just lies there, passed out on the floor. This was your recollection of Christmas when you were 16 years old. This wasn't the first time he had passed out or pissed himself, but this was the first time you ever brought a boy over to your house to celebrate Christmas dinner with you and your family. How many of you all can relate to this situation? Maybe it wasn't Christmas. Maybe it was a birthday or a graduation or some other special day where he was supposed to be there, but he got high out of his mind. Whatever the case, the alcoholic or drug-addicted father has in so many instances embarrassed or shamed his children. It's in those situations where many of these child's emotional needs are not being met because they take a backseat to his addiction. These men are present in their children's lives physically, but leave them emotionally empty. So let's talk about this other group of men, these workaholics. So boys are told at a very young age that they need to be providers for their family. This is a common truth in American society and many other cultures around the world. So as a man, if you are not a good provider for your family, you're considered a loser in most people's eyes. Providing financially is considered to be an essential part of manhood. The problem is that some men take on this role of being a provider and providing financially. They take it too far. And they significantly neglect their role as a father and a husband and fail to provide for their children's emotional and spiritual needs. For some men, it's just too much to address. It's too much work. Dealing with the emotional needs of their children, it requires patience and time and energy. And some men believe it takes too much of their time to deal with. They leave the emotional stuff about raising the children to the children's mother. These men believe that as long as these kids' needs are met for food, shelter, clothing, and other things that can be bought with money, as long as these things are met, they've done their job. In their mind, so long as they are working or maintaining a business, there's nothing more they need to do. Men will say, you have the best of everything because I work my ass off so that you can have it. While this may be very well true, they fail to recognize that what these children really want is their father's attention, his time and love, not just his money. Some men feel that the lack of time with their children is just simply a sacrifice that needs to be made for success. You can't have it both ways, right? Either you have a strong relationship with your kids or you will not be financially successful. You can't have it both ways. So if he's not there for the cheerleading competition, the football game, or the birthday party, everybody just needs to understand and simply get over it. And the problem is these men will begin to take notice when their daughters start talking to the wrong boy or staying out past curfew or talking back to their mother. Or God forbid, being with a guy she doesn't approve of. But what should he expect? He wasn't there long enough or wasn't interested enough to be there for her, to teach her how she should be treated. She was longing for his attention and she starts accepting it from anyone who's willing to give it to her. This may be considered an act of rebellion, but it probably isn't. It's more likely an attention-seeking behavior. These kids may just want to feel validated, wanted, and acknowledged. But what they get is a gift brought with money. They want daddy to look at them, to see their hopes, their wants, their dreams, and their needs. They want to hear their dad's comment like, "Look at my baby doing that," is the thing that builds their self-confidence and lets them know he's proud of them. It's so important to let them know you're watching and you care. So for me, I remember when my daughter was a little girl, she would dress up and stand in front of the family and she would put on a show. She would sing songs from her favorite TV shows. She would act out scenes from her favorite movies, and I would just sit there and watch. And I would clap for her and tell her how good a job she had done. And this is simply what dads do, period. I had to work. I had to provide, but I made time for my children. I made time because I understood how important this time was with them. And I knew I couldn't get it back once it was gone. They were only going to be this age once. And I didn't want to miss it. Not like my dad did. Even if I couldn't give them all of my time, I gave them as much as I could. I live by the philosophy that you will make time for what's important to you. And my kids' lives are just that important to me. But for these other guys, for him to say he's too busy or he doesn't have time for his kids, this can really make a child feel unimportant, insignificant, and not a priority. And no one wants to feel small or irrelevant. But for a child who is seeking attention, this can leave them feeling empty. Now, some men might view their children or kids as being clingy and needy and dramatic or emotional. But if their father is emotionally detached, these children will look for connections and support where they can find it, even if it's from the wrong type of people. They want to have a bond, the kind that should come from having a strong family unit behind them, the kind that comes from having a daddy. So how can you have a bond or a connection with someone who was never there or never has time for you? While he may be in the same house, he may rest his head and shower and change clothes just to be gone again. His children feel neglected, unworthy, unsafe, not valued, and not loved. And like I said, the house never feels like a home because he's never there. This man is a stranger. He's unknown and distant. And the distance that they feel is not just based upon the linear measure, but the emotional one. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the daddy's girl. And They say that a father is his daughter's first love. So why is that? Well, in most cases, a dad is the first example of how she should be treated. I remember when my daughter was young, I would take her to this daddy-daughter dance that we had in our city. And shout out to the Cincinnati Herald for putting that on every year, and they still doing it to this day. Anyway, I think I started taking her to this dance when she was about 8 or 9, and we would go every year. I made it an event. We would both get dressed up. She would wear a pretty dress. I would wear a suit. The main thing I wanted to show her with this daddy-daughter dance, though, was what a gentleman looks like. A gentle man. 2 words, not one. I wanted to show her someone who was caring and kind, so I brought her a dress and I took pictures with her. I would listen to her stories. I wanted her to know what it looked like to have a man be courteous, so I bought her flowers. I would go get her drinks and food, and we would dance all night. I wanted her to see what it looked like for a man to show manners. So I would open car doors and building doors for her, and I would pull out her chair before she sat down. But most of all, I gave her my attention so she didn't feel like she was starving for my love. So I was a gentleman, someone who was not callous, hard, or impatient, but someone who showed compassion and empathy, a gentle person. Think about it. The word gentleman has a great deal of significance because as a dad, you're your daughter's first example of what she should expect from a man who says he loves her. We went to these dances up until she went off to high school. And these are some of my fondest memories with my daughter. I wanted her to experience these things with me so she knew how a young man should treat her if they were dating. I didn't want the first person to tell her she looked pretty to be some boy who was trying to get into her pants. I wasn't going to have my daughter fall for the head fake. Nah. But seriously, I did these things because I didn't want her to fall for just any guy who told her how beautiful she is. I did these things because I wanted her to know what love looked like, or what it's supposed to look like, what encouragement looked like. I wanted to be or to provide her with positive examples so she would fall in love with the right kind of guy. And hopefully she would one day say, I want a guy like my dad. Showing her my gentle side was important to me because I didn't want her to get comfortable with someone speaking to her aggressively, cold, or uninterested. I also wanted to show her my emotions, laughter and happiness, pride and joy, because that's what she is to me. So many men are present in their daughters' lives are led to believe that they need to be emotionless. Some of these men think that showing emotions is a sign of weakness or being soft. The thing is, being soft towards your daughter shouldn't be taboo, should it? Shouldn't you be sensitive and sympathetic towards your daughter? You want her to be feminine and sweet, but if her only examples are aggressive and bitter, this may cause her to be seen as masculine and unladylike. And in my opinion, you should be able to show your children all your emotions. It's not saying you need to be boo-hoo crying in front of them every time you feel sad or afraid, but you can do it enough for them to know that you care about things and you feel emotions. Kids, they're going to still see you as Superman, even if they see you cry. Being strong doesn't mean you don't care or you try to hide your feelings all the time. Expressing how you feel demonstrates to them that you are aware of who you are and that it's okay to let others know it too, at least sometimes. The song, Try a Little Tenderness, is truly a real thing, especially when it comes to your children. You shouldn't be silent and hard all the time because if you are, it may be unreasonable to think that they will trust you with their innermost feelings. Why would they share with you if you don't share with them? Again, You need to lead by showing them positive examples, because if you don't, your children may look to others or take on negative behaviors. Just something to think about. So we talked about the girls. Now let's talk about the boys. So I have a son. He's younger than my daughter, and my relationship with him is different. I wasn't taking him to daddy-daughter dances because he's not a girl, right? It was his mother who was taking him to the mommy-son dance. But he and I spent a great deal of time together because he played sports. And the way we bonded was over his sports. He was good at all the sports he played, but he was really good at basketball. So I decided I would become his coach. I would take him to training sessions when he played basketball. I took him to practice, and I went to all of his games: football, basketball, baseball, all of them. And I did this to show him the support for what he was doing. I took an active role in the things that he was doing. I recognized that for my son, I am his first example of what masculinity looked like. I was his first example of how to treat women, how to be a provider, and how to have a strong work ethic, how to carry himself respectfully as a man, and how to interact with other men. I wanted to show him all these things because I want him to have a better life than I did growing up. I wanted him to have experience in his life so that I could provide him with guidance, and hopefully he would trust me enough to seek my wisdom and understanding when he grew into a man. My son is 23 now, and I believe he trusts me in many ways. He admires what I've accomplished. That was part of my goal. So to me, the time I spent with him and his sister was more valuable than anything I could have done for them financially. This was our bonding time for him to get to know me and to observe how I behaved. It also created a bond of trust between us. It helped to solidify the fact that I had his back no matter what. It was important to me. A dad is someone to be emulated and admired. This has been something that I've always kept in the forefront of my mind. My actions are my children's examples. So as the leader in my household, I need to lead by example. As a dad, you shouldn't get into a habit of being the person that says, do as I say, not as I do. They are looking for connection and support, not money and things. So you need to show them by demonstrating the attributes you truly believe are important. It goes back to something Dr. Martin Luther King spoke about as far as having a life blueprint, having a strong foundation in knowing who you are. But having a dad in your life is that important because it helps to build that structure so that you can become the person that you want to be. And it's part of the blueprint. Steve Harvey mentioned that for most sons, their fathers are the only men in their lives that want them to accomplish more than they have. In my opinion, these are not words of a father. These are the words of a daddy. A daddy wants their children to have more than what they have. I definitely feel this way about my kids. I want them to have more than I've ever had. So if that's something that you aspire to do, you have to feed into them. The next father who is present but absent is one of those guys who is detached because of his past. You see, some men just don't know how to connect with their children. They're physically there, but just don't know or don't have the emotional tools in their toolbox to bond with their kids. Maybe it's because they didn't have their fathers or their fathers weren't nurturing and supportive. These were these old school dads, right? Who lived by tough love. These men were very demanding. They told their boys, you better not cry. Crying was for babies and girls. Showing emotions was a sign of weakness. The children were regulated to not showing any kind of emotion. So when you fell down and scraped your knee, these men would say, get up, and show little concern for any pain that the child may have been in unless the injury was actually severe. These were those quote unquote traditionally manly men, and they were rugged and tough and didn't show their emotions. This was seen as a sign of strength. These men unfortunately left their children with a void on how to feel empathy or compassion, how to nurture or feel and show love. All of the hugging and kissing and bedtime stories or supportive conversations, well, they were simply left up to mom. This wasn't a leave it to beaver type of a moment. Many of these men were disciplinarians. They were former military in some cases, or their fathers were former military. Many times these men can be intolerant and impatient with their children. Every mistake is amplified by 1,000. There isn't a great deal of interaction with these kids. Most of the activities are attended by the child's mother. The father simply doesn't play an active role in their kids' lives. He's physically present in the household, but emotionally and spiritually, he's pretty much checked out. And today, there are still some of these old school fathers. On the other hand, unlike many of these fathers of the past, many dads connect with their children, at least when they're around, especially Black dads. There was a national health statistic report from 2013 that showed that Black dads are more involved in activities with their children than whites and Hispanic fathers. And some of these dads have learned emotional intelligence, that it's all right to cry, to be vulnerable, and to show their emotions. And for those who have not, I hope that they are willing to try and consider some corrective action to change how they deal with their kids, showing their kids grace in the midst of adversity, showing some degree of tolerance, recognizing that nobody is perfect and that making mistakes is how most of us learn. So those are those dads. But there's another group of present but absent fathers. And they may have some of the characteristics of these old school dads, but also may have some anger and frustration issues due to how they became fathers in the first place. And these are what I call the shotgun fathers. These are men who felt like they were doing the right thing by marrying or being with the child's mother because he got her pregnant. I got the name, for these kind of dads from the so-called shotgun weddings. Now, historically, these were situations where a boy or a man gets a girl or a woman pregnant and her father finds out and forces him to marry his daughter. It was said he would make them do this at gunpoint at the end of his shotgun, meaning you were going to marry my daughter or you were going to die. So these men would subsequently become the so-called shotgun dads. There may have been some men who did get married because they were coerced into doing it. There were also men who did the quote unquote honorable thing by marrying a girl who got pregnant. But think about it, these two situations for a minute. This becomes a major sacrifice for these men, and many of them don't necessarily feel or have feelings for the child's mother beyond the sex that they had. And if he doesn't, the potential negative outcome of these unwanted marriages in many cases will carry over into the relationship that he has with the child. You see, even if they love the child unconditionally, but dislikes or doesn't show love for the child's mother, everyone will most likely end up unhappy, or there will be a lack of examples of what a healthy, loving marriage looks like. The child will see the argument or the lack of love or companionship between the parents. How come I never see you and mom kissing or hugging? And the child may observe him being short or inattentive towards her. All these things are seen by their children. Thus, when the child gets older, they act the same way in their relationships. If you don't see affection or love being shown by your parents, you don't know what it looks like. It may seem abnormal, especially if, this is something your partner expects from you. Or they may expect you to communicate what may be going on with you, or you remain silent or closed off. This is because they didn't have any examples in their household growing up. If you didn't see sharing and talking through things, you will most likely emulate what you saw or even didn't see. This is not to say that all daddyless children are like this. Some of us have learned from television or from our mothers to be open about how we feel. It's like I said in episode 6, if you're raised by a woman, you can learn to tap into your emotions like many women do. Those are those types of dads who simply don't know how to show their emotions. So what's the fix? How do you fix this? How do you cure some of these present but absent daddyless issues? For me, I believe that one way is to spend time with your children. Just simply make time for them. Show them that you care. Participate in the things that they enjoy doing. You need to bond with your kids so that they know you love them. If you're never around, never involved, never seem interested, and don't spend time with them, they probably really don't know you. You're the equivalent of a stranger, but you're their father. I would hope that your children aren't a mystery to you and you aren't one to them. Do you think you have to wait until they're adults in order for you to connect with them? You may not have a great deal in common right now, right? But these are your DNA. So actually, you might have more things that you can relate to with them than you think. You have to give it a try before you find yourself in a situation where you're so disconnected and distant that they don't trust you and won't share what they may be going through. And the emotional disconnection from a father who was actually present but absent can somehow be worse, in my opinion, than not knowing your father at all. There is definitely a difference between not being able to talk to someone because they were never there versus someone actually being there and refusing to take an interest or an active role in your life. It seems like a missed opportunity when he is there and present. It's a squandered chance to be the man that your children need in their lives. And these men are not cowards. They've shown up. They've shown that they're men, but they have failed to show that he can be a daddy. So unlike those men who completely abandon their children, he's there. So why waste it and let your opportunity to impact positively on your child's life? That's why I think it's worse. Having a father who lacks the ability or the willingness to be emotional with you, to cry with you, to share his hurts and feelings with you, or to tell you everything is going to be all right is a wasted opportunity. When you don't have this, you are just as daddyless as the kid who never knew their father at all. This may be the man who slept down the hall, but he never shared his life experience with you. He may be cold and distant, or he may be the person who keeps everything bottled up inside. You don't know him. He's like a stranger in the same house. The issues related to a father being present but absent in many ways are similar to those where a father is never present at all. The child is looking for love that their father was supposed to give. Some will lash out, become rebellious. Some will be overachievers. Some will become promiscuous. Some will become drug addicts or be addicted to other things. Whether he was present or not, the symptoms are the same, and so is the cure. They need their daddy. They are looking for his love and approval. They want to hear him say, "Good job," or "I'm proud of you." They want and need that emotional connection, that bond. And if they can't get it from their father who was present, they will get it from someone else, good, bad, or whatever. So from my perspective, it's simply you need to show up. In many instances, being present is a part of what is necessary to have a healthy and whole child. Showing up is half the battle. Your presence is a present for your children. Being present also demonstrates some level of interest in your child's life. This is especially important when you have a workaholic dad, but actually being present in the moment is so significant. It can be life-changing. This means participating and taking an active role in what your children may be doing or dealing with. Don't pass the buck. Don't look for someone else to handle those things that you should be handling as a dad. Not the child's mother, not the nanny, not an uncle or some other man. It needs to be you. I understand that being busy as a provider takes a great deal of time and effort, but you are or should be the only dad that they will ever have. If you are truly someone to be admired, emulated, and appreciated, you will need to play your part in all ways. Help with homework, attend their sports activities, go to schools and parent-teacher conference, but most of all, be available for them to share their worries, their joys, and their pain. But share your emotions too. Let them know you as a person, not just as a dad. Share your mistakes and successes. Give them hugs and kisses and let them know you truly love them, not just with words or money, but with your actions. Don't just be physically present and still absent. While both circumstances create a daddyless situation, whether he's present or abandoned them, which one do you think is worse? Again, for me, I think being present and absent is worse. But on the other hand, how does a man learn to connect with his children if he had no role models to show him how? How important is it for a father to show their children how they are feeling? How should a man balance work and home life with his children? Is it even important in your opinion? Please let me know in the comments. So that's our episode for today. If any part of it touched you or spoke to you, as always, if you know someone that can benefit from this or any other podcast that I've done, please share, like, and follow. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. Check out all the other episodes of the Daddyless Issues podcast. Also, don't forget to get a copy of the book Motive or Motivation by me, Donte Brown. It is on sale through Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Take care.